The Silent Observer. The observation deck of the Terra Nova space station offered a view that Commander Helena Voss never tired of seeing. Beyond the reinforced transparent aluminum windows, the Andromeda sector stretched endlessly, a tapestry of distant stars and swirling nebulae. For 12 years, this had been humanity's furthest outpost, a deliberate statement of restraint positioned exactly at the edge of neutral space. Helena turned as footsteps echoed across the polished floor. Director Samuel Hayes approached, his weathered face bearing news she had been expecting for weeks. The Zephyrin Empire had conquered another system. Their biomechanical fleets were now only 3 parsecs from the established neutral zone that Earth had maintained for 48 years. The director handed her a data pad without preamble. The Galactic Assembly was convening an emergency session. Every spacefaring civilization would send representatives, and for the first time in 2 decades they specifically requested Earth's participation. Helena studied the information, noting the desperate undertone in the formally worded invitation. The Assembly needed humanity's military might, though they would never directly admit their fear. 3 days later, Ambassador Chen Wei stood before the assembled representatives of 37 civilizations. The grand chamber aboard the Assembly's mobile capital ship hummed with nervous energy. The Altarian delegation's crystalline forms pulsed with agitated colors, while the Korvax representatives clicked their mandibles in barely concealed anxiety. At the center of it all, the Zephyrin Empire's empty seat served as a chilling reminder of who they were discussing. The Assembly's prime coordinator, a being from the ancient Etherian race, initiated the proceedings with characteristic formality. The situation had deteriorated beyond their worst projections. 16 systems had fallen in the past solar cycle. The Zephyrin bioships adapted to every weapon used against them, learning and evolving with each engagement. Traditional warfare had proven useless against an enemy that treated battle as an opportunity for biological enhancement. Ambassador Chen listened patiently as species after species described their losses. The Meridian Commonwealth had lost 3 colony worlds. The Vorthon Confederacy's proud fleet was reduced to scattered remnants. Each testimony painted the same picture of an unstoppable force consuming everything in its path. When the chamber finally fell silent, all eyes turned to Earth's representative. Chen stood slowly, his measured movements commanding attention. Earth appreciated the Assembly's invitation, he began, but their position remained unchanged. Humanity would defend its borders and protect its colonies, but they would not venture beyond their established territory to engage in foreign conflicts. The controlled neutrality that had served them for nearly 5 decades would continue. The outcry was immediate and predictable. The Altarians flashed angry reds and oranges. The Korvax delegation buzzed with indignation. How could Earth stand by while entire civilizations faced extinction? Did humanity have no conscience, no sense of galactic responsibility? Chen weathered the storm of accusations with practiced calm, waiting for the chaos to subside before responding. Earth's restraint was not born from cowardice or indifference. It came from understanding. Humanity had learned through centuries of internal conflict what happened when they fully committed to war. They had split atoms, engineered plagues, and turned their own planet into a battlefield multiple times over. When they finally reached the stars and discovered they were not alone, humanity made a collective decision. They would be neighbors, trading partners and observers, but never again would they be conquerors. The Prime Coordinator pressed further, its ethereal form shimmering with urgency. Surely Earth could see the difference between aggression and defense. The Zephyrin Empire threatened all free civilizations. Their bioassimilation technology would eventually reach Earth's borders. Would humanity wait until the threat was at their doorstep? Chen's response was measured but firm. Earth had survived by understanding the distinction between immediate and potential threats. They had contingency plans for every scenario, including Zephyron expansion, but preemptive action based on fear had led humanity down dark paths before. They would not repeat those mistakes regardless of external pressure or moral arguments. As the ambassador departed the assembly, leaving behind frustrated and frightened representatives, he knew they didn't understand. How could they? These civilizations had achieved spaceflight through cooperation and enlightenment. They had never needed to chain the beast within themselves. Humanity was different. They had reached the stars not despite their capacity for destruction, but because of it. The same drives that had nearly destroyed them had also pushed them to escape their cradle. Back on Terra Nova, Commander Voss received Chen's report with grim satisfaction. The assembly would have to face the Zephyrins alone, at least for now. She turned to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, who was monitoring long-range sensors. The Zephyrin bioships were moving in patterns that suggested intelligence gathering rather than immediate assault. They were learning about the neutral zone, testing its boundaries without crossing them. Webb highlighted several concerning developments. The Zephyrins had begun deploying reconnaissance drones that dissolved into biological matter when discovered, making it impossible to study their technology. More troubling, they had started broadcasting on frequencies that caused mild disorientation in most carbon-based life forms. It was psychological warfare at its most subtle, wearing down resistance before the first shot was fired. Director Hayes convened a closed session with Earth's military leadership via quantum communication. The Joint Chiefs were unanimous in their assessment. The Zephyrins would eventually test Earth's resolve. Their biological imperative to expand and assimilate would not allow them to ignore a technologically advanced species indefinitely. The question was not if, but when and how. Admiral Rebecca Stone, commanding Earth's Third Fleet, presented the military's analysis. The Zephyrin Empire had never encountered a species that didn't engage them directly. Their entire strategy relied on learning from active combat, adapting to enemy tactics in real time. Earth's refusal to engage had likely puzzled them, possibly even frustrated their biological algorithms. This confusion might be humanity's greatest advantage. The discussion turned to Earth's hidden capabilities. Project Prometheus remained operational but dormant. The quantum displacement arrays were maintained but never activated. The nanoswarm colonies slept in their containment fields. Weapons that could unmake matter at the subatomic level sat in arsenals that most of humanity didn't even know existed. These were the tools of a species that had looked into the abyss of its own destructive potential and chosen to step back. As the meeting concluded, a priority alert interrupted all communications. Long-range sensors had detected a massive Zephyrin fleet movement, not toward the assembly's remaining strongholds as expected, but toward the outer edge of the neutral zone. The bioships were moving in a formation that suggested something beyond military conquest. They were herding something. Commander Voss magnified the sensor data, her breath catching as the full picture emerged. A civilian convoy bearing the markings of the refugee collective was being pursued by Zephyrin hunter-killer units. 15,000 souls, mostly families evacuated from conquered worlds, were being driven deliberately toward Earth's neutral zone. The Zephyrins weren't just testing boundaries. They were creating a moral dilemma. The convoy's desperate transmissions flooded all channels. They begged for sanctuary, for protection, for anyone to help them. The Zephyrin bioships maintained their pursuit, careful not to destroy the refugees but ensuring they had nowhere to go except toward Earth's territory. It was a calculated move designed to force humanity's hand. Helena watched as the refugee ships crossed into the neutral zone, their engines failing from exhaustion and damage. Behind them, the Zephyrin fleet stopped at the boundary, waiting. The trap was perfectly sprung. If Earth helped the refugees, they would be drawn into the conflict. If they didn't, they would be seen as heartless observers willing to let innocents die for the sake of political neutrality. Director Hayes made the call that would change everything. Earth would render humanitarian aid to the refugees but would not engage the Zephyrin fleet. Medical ships and supply vessels moved to assist the convoy, carefully avoiding any military posture. The operation was flawlessly executed, saving every refugee without firing a single shot. The Zephyrin response came 12 hours later. A single bioship, larger than any previously recorded, approached the neutral zone boundary. It didn't cross but instead released something into space, a cloud of biological spores, each one carrying a message encoded in DNA itself. When translated, the message was simple and chilling. Humanity's compassion is noted. Your protection of the weak marks you as prey. Commander Voss stood on the observation deck once more, watching as the Zephyrin fleet withdrew. They had shown their hand too early, revealed their assumption that kindness meant weakness. It was the same mistake countless human generals had made throughout history, confusing restraint with inability. She turned to her command staff, all of whom had gathered without being summoned. They understood what was coming. The Zephrons would return, emboldened by what they perceived as Earth's soft response. They would come with their bioships and their adaptation algorithms, expecting to face a civilization that chose mercy over strength. They had no idea what they had actually awakened. When Giants Wake, the colony ship Esperanza had been traveling for 6 months when the Zefran biovessels found it. Captain Maria Santos had done everything right, following approved transit routes and maintaining communication protocols with Earth's monitoring stations. The ship carried 800 colonists bound for New Eden, families who had won the lottery for settlement rights on humanity's newest garden world. The attack came without warning or provocation. Zefran boarding pods pierced the Esperanza's hull in 17 places simultaneously. Biomechanical warriors poured through the breaches, their forms shifting and adapting to the ship's environment in real time. Captain Santos managed to send a single transmission before the bridge was overrun. The video feed showed her final moments, defending her crew with a plasma rifle before being dissolved by Zefran bioacid. On Earth, President Alexandra Reed watched the footage in the emergency bunker beneath Geneva. Around her, the Security Council sat in stunned silence. The Esperanza's destruction had been broadcast across all galactic channels. The Zefran Empire wanted everyone to see what happened to those who sheltered refugees. They wanted Earth to know that neutrality was no longer an option. The casualty reports were still coming in. 800 civilians, including 300 children, had been killed or absorbed into the Zefran collective consciousness. The colony ship's AI had managed to upload final sensor readings before its destruction. The Zefran bioships had specifically targeted families, converting them in front of their loved ones. It was cruelty designed to send a message. Director Hayes entered the bunker with Admiral Stone and General Marcus Reeves. Their faces told the story before they spoke. The Zefran Empire had simultaneously attacked 3 other human vessels in neutral space. A research station near Proxima Centauri had gone dark. Mining operations in the asteroid belt reported biomechanical infections spreading through their equipment. The attacks were coordinated, deliberate, and devastating. President Reed stood slowly, her decision already made. For 48 years, Earth had chosen peace. They had turned away from the warrior culture that had nearly destroyed them. But the Zephrans had made a fatal error. They had assumed humanity's evolution toward peace meant they had forgotten how to wage war. They had murdered children and broadcast it as a demonstration of power. The president's voice was steady as she gave the order that would reshape the galaxy. Activate Protocol 7. All restrictions on military development are lifted. Inform the Joint Chiefs that Earth is now in a state of total war. Not limited war, not proportional response. Total war. Within hours, facilities that had been dormant for decades hummed to life. Deep beneath Earth's surface, automated factories began producing weapons that existed only in classified databases. The lunar installations unveiled shipyards that had been hidden beneath regolith for half a century. Mars released its contingent of AI-controlled battle platforms, each one capable of independent strategic thinking at speeds no biological mind could match. Admiral Stone took command of the unified human fleet from the Fortress-class vessel Nemesis. The ship had been built in secret, its very existence known only to a handful of officials. It was not just a warship, but a statement of intent. Every surface was covered with weapon systems. Every corridor was designed for maximum efficiency in combat. It was what humanity built when they stopped pretending they weren't predators. The first encounter came near Jupiter. A Zefran scout force of 12 bioships encountered humanity's advance guard. The aliens expected their usual advantages of adaptation and biological superiority. Instead, they met weapons that didn't care about biology. Quantum torpedoes that deleted matter from existence. Gravity bombs that created localized singularities. Energy beams that operated outside the visible spectrum, attacking the very molecular bonds that held the bioships together. The battle lasted 4 minutes. No Zefran vessel survived, and more importantly, none escaped to transmit data about human capabilities. This was intentional. Earth's military doctrine for this war was simple: leave no survivors to learn from their mistakes. Every engagement would be total annihilation. General Reeves coordinated the ground forces, though ground was a relative term in space warfare. Human Marines equipped with powered armor that enhanced their strength 100-fold prepared for boarding actions. But these were not ordinary soldiers. They were volunteers who had undergone genetic modification, neural enhancement, and psychological conditioning. They were what humanity became when it decided that monsters were needed to fight monsters. The Zephyrin Empire's response to their scout force's disappearance was predictable. They sent a larger fleet to investigate, confident in their numerical superiority. 100 bioships entered the solar system, their organic hulls pulsing with aggressive intent. They broadcast demands for Earth's surrender, offering assimilation as an alternative to destruction. Earth's response came in the form of Operation Silence. Thousands of microsatellites that had been dormant in orbit around various planets activated simultaneously. They formed a network that generated a quantum field encompassing the entire solar system. Any Zephyrin ship within the field found its biological processes disrupted at the cellular level. Their adaptation abilities, their greatest strength, became useless when their very cells forgot how to function. The 100 ships died slowly, their biomechanical crews experiencing something they had never encountered: true helplessness. As they drifted, disabled and dying, human vessels moved among them like sharks among wounded prey. Each ship was methodically destroyed, its biological matter collected and analyzed. Earth was learning everything about its enemy, while denying them the same opportunity. The Psychological Warfare Division, led by Dr. Sarah Chen, implemented strategies that targeted the Zephyrin collective consciousness. They had discovered that the Empire operated on a shared neural network, allowing instant communication but also creating vulnerability. Earth's quantum computers generated virus algorithms designed to introduce doubt and fear into the collective. For a species that had never known defeat, the sensation was paralyzingly foreign. 3 weeks into the war, Earth revealed its true capability. The Prometheus Array, a network of installations throughout human space, activated for the first time. It projected a field that fundamentally altered the laws of physics within its range. Faster-than-light travel became impossible. Energy weapons dissipated harmlessly. The only way to fight within the field was with kinetic weapons and close combat, areas where humanity's violent history gave them insurmountable advantages. The Zephyrin Empire's response was desperate. They sent their entire core fleet, 5,000 bioships strong, toward Earth. It was the largest armada in recorded galactic history. The Galactic Assembly watched in terror, certain that Earth would be overwhelmed. They didn't understand that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Admiral Stone deployed Earth's true fleet for the first time. Not the few hundred vessels other species had observed, but thousands of warships that had been hidden in pocket dimensions created by human physicists. These ships didn't follow conventional design principles. They were weapons platforms, pure and simple, bristling with destructive capability that violated several galactic treaties Earth had never signed. The Battle of Saturn would be remembered as the moment the galaxy understood why humanity had chosen peace. The Zephyrin fleet arrived in perfect formation, their bioships linked in a collective network that had never failed them. Earth's forces waited, patient as death itself. When the engagement began, it was not a battle but an execution. Humanity unleashed weapons that had been theoretical nightmares on their own world: antimatter bombs that created expanding spheres of annihilation, nanoswarms that consumed biological matter and converted it into more nanomachines, directed singularity weapons that created black holes inside enemy ships. But the most terrifying weapon was the Silence Protocol. Selected human ships generated a field that severed the Zephyrin collective consciousness. Individual bioships found themselves alone for the first time in their species' history. The psychological trauma was instant and devastating. Ships turned on each other in confusion and terror, their crews unable to function without the collective's guidance. The slaughter continued for 6 hours. Earth's forces were methodical, ensuring no ship escaped to warn the Empire. When it ended, 5,000 Zephyrin vessels were reduced to scattered atoms and biological waste. Earth had not lost a single ship. General Reeves led the counter-offensive into Zephyrin space. Human forces didn't conquer. They annihilated. Every world the Zephyrins had infected was cleansed with fire. Planets were cracked open to ensure no trace of the biomechanical plague survived. It was genocide on a scale that made other species recoil in horror. But Earth's leadership was unmoved. The Zephyrins had killed human children. There would be no mercy. The Zephyrin Empire's homeworld was the last to fall. By then, Their collective consciousness was screaming across all frequencies, begging for terms, for mercy, for anything to make the humans stop. Earth's response was silence. The planet was surrounded by a quantum barrier that prevented any escape. Then, humanity deployed its final solution. The Genesis device had been developed in secret, a weapon so terrible that its creators had originally recommended its immediate destruction. It didn't just kill. It rewrote matter at the fundamental level. The Zephyrin homeworld was transformed over the course of 3 days, its entire biosphere replaced with sterile earth and water. Every trace of the Empire's existence was erased. Their billion-year evolution ended in 72 hours. When the war ended, Earth's fleet returned to human space without ceremony or celebration. The weapons were deactivated, the secret facilities sealed once more. Humanity had proven its point. They chose peace not from weakness but from wisdom. They knew what they were capable of, and they chose every day to be better. The Galactic Assembly never again questioned Earth's neutrality. Other species learned to resolve their conflicts before they might draw humanity's attention. The empty space where the Zephyron Empire once existed served as a monument to a simple truth. Earth's restraint was a gift to the galaxy, not a weakness to be exploited. Commander Voss stood once more on Terra Nova's observation deck. The stars looked the same, but the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Humanity had shown its true face, and now it could return to the mask of civilization. She knew they would maintain their vigilance, ready to become monsters again if needed. But for now, Earth chose peace, and the galaxy was grateful.